Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello, welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today, I have a very special guest, Nolan. She helps heart-centered entrepreneurs use their yoga practice to fully embody their most confident, focused, and resilient selves so they can make the impact and income they are destined for. She's a personal trainer and yoga instructor with over 16 years of experience and is the creator of the Elevation Method, which is her unique combination of yoga, strength training, and neuro-hacking techniques that gets her students amazing results. So welcome to my show, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, I'm curious. So you're using different techniques and methods that you brought together to your own special method. Can you share a little bit how you brought this together and how it came that you have all these different experiences?
Absolutely. So I've been doing this work for 16 years, so it's kind of changed shapes a few times. And I began to realize a few years ago that exercise, so the personal training aspect of my tool set, is obviously very important. We know, keep your bones healthy, your muscles strong, your heart, all of those beautiful things. And then yoga has a whole bunch of benefits to it as well. The mind, body awareness, stress reduction, calming, et cetera, so all of the amazing things. But they each were missing parts. And so bringing them together allows me to create a system, a method that really helps you on every level of your physical being, as well as your energetic and your mental and your spiritual being, because what we're doing here is making the most of the time on the mat because, busy people, busy business owners, there's a lot to do. We all have a lot to do. And so if we can do something, a session that brings all together all of those components, it really allows you to energize and boost your vitality on every level of your being. And so that way you're stepping off the mat feeling amazing, knowing that you've done something great for yourself and you're able to really get into that heart-centered space and being able to move from that place of awareness throughout the whole day.
Okay, how can I imagine, like if I would be your client and I would ask you, okay, can you show me something? What are you doing with me? Or what am I doing with your support?
It depends on what your body needs. So really, it comes back to balance. It comes back to bringing your body back into physical alignment, right? So we start with the physical alignment in yoga, and then we keep going deeper and deeper. So depending on, if you had injuries or areas that you wanted to focus on, then that's where we would start. So there's ways to create a session that, if you wanted to, specifically, if you wanted to focus more on the flexibility element. So we would do things that are, of course, warming up your body, getting your joints open, and then moving into flexibility and stretching. But if you wanted to add some strength training to that, then we could do some body weight exercises using just your own body, or starting to use resistance with some bands or some weights, so that it's very customizable. And it's, you can think of it kind of like a merger of a fitness workout and a yoga session all in one.
Okay, so what I get is that you're working very individual, like people working one-on-one with you, or are you also working in groups?
Also working in groups, yes, definitely. It's an interesting thing because, in the group setting, there's so many different bodies and needs. And so the versatility of yoga is absolutely incredible because we can suggest something, let's start here. And if you want to go a little further, you can try this. Or if that feels like too much, then you back up a little bit. So there's lots of ways to adjust it in the group setting. And that's the fun energy of everyone coming together. And especially right now, over the past year, it's nice to have that connection to the community of people that are on the same journey as you. Or, if you do want to work one-on-one, then that's an option too.
Okay. And how does this biohacking come in?
Yes, good question. So brain hacking and biohacking and all of those things that are really just setting us up for success on the deep level of our being. So when we look at, our results that we have in our outer world, it's a reflection of our inner belief system. And it's really important that we begin to recognize the areas that we're getting stuck and the thoughts that are repeating over and over in our mind that are your brain's mechanism of keeping you safe, right? Your brain is not meant to have you thriving as an entrepreneur. It's to keep you safe from the tiger. And so it will do things to ensure that. But that way it's kind of working against us. So when we bring in the inner shifts of doing the different exercises, doing the mantras or affirmations or reprogramming the old limiting beliefs, then we begin to make major changes, because then we're starting to kind of change the internal operating system of what's going on in your brain. So you're thinking thoughts that are more aligned with your big vision. You're having those beliefs about yourself that are allowing you to feel empowered right now, feel focused, all the good things that you want, so that you can show up from that place using the tools on a regular basis. And that's the thing. It's not like use it once and then your brain's going to be all set. You've been telling yourself these stories for 30, 40, 50 years, right? So it takes time, but the resiliency of the brain and the plasticity of the brain, meaning that we can change things, is a powerful tool set when you begin to integrate it intentionally.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And when I work with people, I often hear also these blocking beliefs that stop them from really coming into their genius soon, who they really are, their essence. And getting this transformed or shifted means that they can really grow into what they truly are. And of course, having this different mindset also allows you to change your body in a different way. Yeah.
Exactly. Because what we're doing is activating the feeling and activating the emotion. And so one of the tools that I share is the attention to the intention. So what is it that you want to feel today? And so say you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or you're dealing with anxiety, and you recognize that you want to feel grounded. So what we do in the yoga practice is we set what's called an intention or a sankalpa. And so we repeat that to ourselves. I am grounded. I am grounded. And when you pair that with time on the mat where you're focusing on being grounded, so you're focusing on pushing your feet down, you're focusing on the stability of the pose, activating your legs, you get the physical experience of being grounded. So not only are you having the mental connection, you're also having the physical connection. And when you combine a thought with a feeling with repetition, so we say it to ourselves a lot, I am grounded, I'm feeling it in my body, then we begin to create a new belief for ourselves. So we're shifting what our mind is aware of by what's happening in our body. So it's a really powerful combination.
Yeah, that sounds really strong. And understanding that there is always a connection between the body sensations and the emotions you do have, but it's vice versa. So you can create the one like feeling good as well as feeling bad. So what are the blocking beliefs people normally come in when they come into a session?
The blocking beliefs, limiting beliefs. Yeah. About yoga itself or about themselves?
About themselves that you help them with.
Typically it's, I don't know if I'm good enough to be able to figure all of this out or do it on my own. There's a lot of, imposter syndrome, because we typically people that I work with are very high achievers. Like they're going after it. They have a drive, but then there's, something in their mind, a little story that's telling them, well, you don't have the results you want yet. So, maybe you should try harder. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome, or just not being able to really value ourselves at the high level that we deserve, because again, we're still in that sort of questioning phase of like, is this really that good? Are people really going to pay for this? And so it's a lot of that, of stepping back and learning to acknowledge ourselves and learning to give ourselves, praise and celebration, and being able to begin to get that in an internal reference. Because as women, we're very externally referenced. We see that we look for validation from outside of ourselves. And so if we can learn to internally validate, celebrate our strengths, recognize when we've had these wins, rather than saying, okay, good job, keep going, you know. So it's a presence, and that's, you know, ultimately what yoga is about, is being present and aware. And so catching the beliefs and beginning to rework them.
Yeah, I also see that being really present in the moment, like focusing on your body, focusing on the emotions that come up, transforming them, and not being like, okay, last time I had to do this and tomorrow I have to buy this. So like being somewhere else in the past or the future, but really being for these exercises in the present moment and being aware what you're really feeling at that moment and what other sensations you do have. I think this is very
Exactly.
special as well, because I see a lot of people that are somewhere with their head, but not right there where they can create also the future. You can only create it from the present moment into the future. So empowering them is definitely really helpful. So understanding a little bit more, what kind of people are coming to you? So you already said, yeah, they are high achievers, entrepreneurs. Can you give a little bit more about that?
Typically, the people that I work with are we. I said female and women all in one word there. Female and driven in the sense that they feel like they have a mission to accomplish. They know that their soul has a mission, and so they are very intentional and purpose-driven and heart-centered, that are going out and really wanting to help people. And so coaches, consultants, experts in different fields. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be in the healing industry, but I have a fair amount of people that are as well, because they're already really tapped into themselves. But people that are very sort of creative and expressive. So maybe that's in graphic design or copywriting, different sort of, you know, creative expressions. And so that seems to be the bulk of whom I work with. And people that are wanting to learn, wanting to continue to go deeper and understand themselves on a development, personal development sort of journey, that are open to having these tools and recognizing that, you know, we can use yoga and we can use brain hacking and we can use meditation and all of these things to bring ourselves in the present moment. But ultimately what it's doing is helping us to evolve as humans, helping our souls to continue on their journey of evolution. So people that are really, you know, open-minded, curious, spiritual seekers that are present to the connection of mind and body and spirit, and knowing that everything has a holistic element to it. And it's important that we are aware of all those different levels of ourself and nurture that, and not put ourselves at the very end of the to-do list, which, you know, we can all do from time to time, but recognizing that how we feel is so important, and how we, when we take time to nurture and nourish ourselves, then it affects how we show up. So knowing people that know that their business is a reflection of them, and they want to come at it with their best self, and being able to serve at that high level and not be depleted and exhausted all the time.
Mm-hmm. So these are, I think, also people that are very empathetic and very sensitive. Otherwise, they wouldn't be like coaches or like creative people. Do you see that your work has a different impact on these kind of people than on people that are not so open or not so open-minded or not so deep in their feelings?
I suppose it does. Yeah, that's a great question. So people that are more sensitive are going to feel the effects on a deeper level, whereas people that are not so open will be focused on the outer transformation, which is very powerful, and that's very important. You know, of course, we need to keep the vessel of the human body strong and healthy. So they would probably feel it more from the, like, yeah, I feel great. I feel energized. My body's getting stronger. I can stand on one foot. Whereas people that are more sensitive can feel that, like, oh, wow, I'm able to be more present. I'm, you know, really aware of the subtleties, want to go deeper into the deeper levels of healing, you know, working with the more energetic aspects of ourselves. So it does, yeah, it's a different effect for sure. But I think ultimately they're achieving the same thing, right? But they're just sort of aware of it at a different level.
Okay. So understanding a little bit more about your own journey, like you said, you have the experience in different levels, like the strengthening of the body, but also doing the yoga and the biohacking. What was your own journey that brought you to this experience you now have?
Great question. So my educational background was in gerontology. So that's the study of aging. And so initially, you know, I finished university and then I decided to move to Hawaii and become a personal trainer and a yoga instructor. My parents were very confused. But, you know, it's been a journey for sure, like it is for everybody. And being somebody who's really driven, I got to a point about 5 years ago where I was saying yes to everything. I was exhausted. I was burnt out. I was dealing with really consistent anxiety and definitely very consistent depression, and really just got to a very low point and was, you know, wondering like, okay, maybe I'm, you know, the stories of maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Like, I don't have what it takes. I don't know if I can do this. I don't, you know, and all of that stuff that we all say in different tones and voices. And so my yoga mat was like, I barely used it. I just lay on it and cry. I was so exhausted, and recognizing, okay, things need to change because this is clearly not going to work, but this is clearly your passion, you know, and recognizing that it was what I want to do and what I'm great at and what my zone of genius. So decided that I needed to take a bit of a different route because I clearly was not doing it in the most efficient way. And then so began to go deeper with understanding the philosophy of the yoga practice. And also my teacher suggested, you know, if you can't do the poses, why don't you learn more about the poses themselves? And so that's when I started to look into the stories behind the poses. And it's not so much traditionally taught in the West, but there is, for the most part, behind every yoga pose, there's a story that explains it, explains the name, explains the journey, explains the qualities. And so I was just fascinated by that because I had never been taken to that point. And so I started to learn more about that, and specifically was drawn to the warrior poses. So the 3 warrior poses in yoga, which you've probably done at least one of them, you know, most people that have been on a yoga mat have done at least one of the yoga poses. And so it's a very powerful story, and it teaches us about our own journey as yogis, you know, people that practice yoga, but also just as humans with a mission in our soul. And so it teaches us about these essential qualities, these ways of being, these tools, these ways of centering ourselves, holding our power, and being able to recognize our own brilliance. And, you know, the mission that warrior was on was to learn to be able to control his mind, which is ultimately what we're all doing. And which is ultimately, you know, what we're doing in yoga is learning to, and especially in the work that I do, learning to be able to stay in that place, like we've been talking about, staying in the heart, staying in that place of openness, staying in that place of presence, so that we can continue to navigate forward on our journey. And yes, we're going to get thrown here and there, and, you know, being able to recognize that and come back. And so that was a tool set that really helped me be able to navigate that time and be able to understand yoga at a much deeper level. And so that was, you know, it helped me then. And then last year at the beginning of COVID, I created a whole program around that, because I was like, you know, as we all were last March, what do I do? My business just flew out the window. I'm in that state of like anxiety and depression again. I didn't know what to do. And so I did what I know to do, and I went and laid on the yoga mat and I got quiet. And then, you know, somewhere from my heart, my soul, I just heard this little whisper of, you're a warrior, you know what to do. And then I was like, oh, of course, this is what people need right now. This is what people need to be reminded of that resiliency, the strength. And me too, you know, of course. And then so was able to use that tool set of Wake the Warrior Within, which is the series that we go through with the 3 warrior poses, and be able to help people and connect, and also feel like, okay, the amazing depth of yoga is so applicable right now, because we're all in a very uncertain situation. We're not sure what to do. We're alone. We need to remember and get grounded in all of those things that the practice teaches us. So, you know, it was a beautiful time because it helped me recognize how far I'd come in my journey, and also be able to help people and connect with on my community level, and be able to use these tools in a different way again. And so it's been quite a journey for me of evolution and going deeper and understanding. So it's, you know, it's a practice. And so it's something that we're always working on. But yeah, that's how I got to where I'm at.
Yeah, wow. And so you're already speaking out of your own experience and not only out of books or like being a trainer. So this is really important. Yeah. For the people who don't know about the three poses of the warrior and what kind of story is behind, yes, I don't know it. What is it? Can you give us a little bit more details about that so that we can understand what it is all about?
For sure. So before we start the story, the poses all look different. So the first warrior pose is standing with your feet apart and your arms in the air, and you're stretching your hands up over your head. So if you can't see the video, my arms are reaching up over my head. And then the next one, your feet are wider apart and your arms are out to the side in a T position. And then the third one is you're standing on one foot with your arms straight out in front of you. You'll understand why that's going to make sense in a second. Because so the story is, it's an ancient parable, and it's the tale of two lovers, one of whom is a god. So it's Shiva. He's part of the Hindu Trinity. And so he's the kind of like bad boy of the Hindu Trinity. And, you know, he's like wearing his dreadlocks and all he does is meditate. And he's known to be a bit of a disturber. And so his partner, Shakti, is a human that loves him, has loved him for lifetimes. And her father doesn't like him, obviously. He's like, I don't want you with that guy. And so her father decides to, you know, make a point of it and throws a party, invites everybody but the two of them. So he invites everybody and she was like, oh, no big deal, whatever. It's like, I don't want to go anyway. And so she said, well, I'm going to go. And because she's very upset, she's embarrassed. And so keep in mind, it's all a parable. It's an analogy, right? And so she's really embarrassed. And so she goes to the party and gets in front of her dad and is like, why? No, this is humiliating everybody but me. And she starts to get more and more angry, getting boiled up, you know, as we all can do. We can, you know, if we're not present, we can lose our temper. And so that's what it's speaking to here. And she gets so angry that she bursts into flames and she just crumbles to a pile of ashes right in the middle of the party. And so her father is obviously devastated. And then Shiva, being a god, knows exactly what happens. He comes out of his meditation and comes into a fit of grief and rage and wants revenge. And so he pulls out one of his dreadlocks and he throws it to the ground and he creates the warrior that is now charged with his request to go and get me Daksha's head. So keep in mind, it's all a metaphor for our brain. What we're trying to do is be able to control and focus the mind. So that's why it's his head. So then he sets off. So the warrior has 1,000 arms, 1,000 heads. He's vicious looking. And so what we represent in the posture, the arms, the way you hold your arms are your swords and how you're using your tools. And so he begins on his journey. And so he starts to carve his way down and through the mountain. And so you think of the first pose where he has his arms up over his head, and that's where he's creating a tunnel and he's trying to get there. And so this teaches us resilience and determination and focus and being aware of our mission, staying on it. Because if he had, you know, got distracted, he would have ended up at the wrong place. So he ends up right underneath the palace, pops. So he takes his swords and pierces through the hole of the floor and then explodes. And that's the second pose where he's out, he's standing his ground. So keep in mind, inside the party, everybody is devastated at what just happened with Shiva and Shakti. And so he explodes into the room and everyone's like, whoa, what is going on? Who is this? Like 1,000 head, 1,000 arms. And he stands his ground. And that's Warrior 2 teaches us to stand in our power, be present, be open, be courageous. And so it's really activating all those qualities within your body. And then, so he, you know, stands his ground and he says, who is Daksha? And Daksha, hiding from behind the curtains, is like, me. Me, that's me. And so what he does is, you know, Virabhadra, the warrior, he plants his foot down, and that's the third pose. He plants his foot down and then he leans forward and he pops off his head. So remember, it's an analogy. And so all of a sudden, knowing what happens, Shakti comes back to life and is like, Shiva, I know you did this. I know this was you. I don't know how you're going to fix it, but you better get down here and fix this now. And so he's like, oh man, he knows what he did. And so tail between his legs, he arrives at the party and everyone is now like, whoa, what is this? Is crazy. Shiva's here now. This is, oh my goodness. And so he knows what he's done. So this is speaking to making amends. We all make mistakes. What can we do to make it right? What can we do to stay focused and grounded so we don't lose our temper and have to do stuff like this? And so he, of course, you know, he handles the situation. He finds him a new head, puts it on top of his head, and then takes a big breath and exhales and brings it back to life. So speaking to the power of the breath and learning to be able to control ourselves using the power of the breath. And so he comes back to life. He's thrilled to be alive again. And he, sees Shiva and Shakti in front of him and is, of course, very grateful and decides that now the party should be to celebrate their love. So it's quite a wild tale, but it teaches us quite a bit about the practice. And you can see how in the poses, the shapes of the pose allows us to tap into those qualities. So there's 21 qualities. So tapping into those qualities, both on the mental level when we repeat it, I am powerful, I'm powerful, and you feel it in your body or whatever it is that you're focusing on.
Wow, what a story.
No, it's a bit out there, isn't it?
But with a happy end. I'm so grateful that is a happy end.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but understanding this story behind the poses and understanding how this can reflect our own human experiences while we are practicing these poses. I think this is really the powerful message behind this metaphor or this story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is. It takes it to a whole different level, because then when you realize, oh, that's why the poses are shaped like that, and that's corresponding to the part of the journey that he was at. And we all have different chapters to our journey. And so there's so many things that you can, kind of glean from that, take from that. And it's a metaphor, and it's not going to be easy, and we're going to lose our temper sometimes, but we're all on that mission to be able to cultivate that internal awareness, begin to use our mind to go in the direction of our dreams and our mission. And it reminds us that we all have a mission, we all have a purpose, and being able to use this practice in a way that helps us to get there is quite powerful.
Does this exercise also help people who have a feeling, okay, perhaps I have a purpose, but I'm not clear about that, to open them up and to bring it out somehow?
Absolutely. Because it allows us to get quiet and ask questions of ourselves. That's what I help people do, is start to go a little bit deeper using different questions or different tools so that we can begin to get out of the noisy chatter of the mind, right? And be able to get still and be able to tap into your strengths and look at what lights you up, what makes you happy. And yeah, for sure, it definitely does help people have realizations and insights.
What are these kind of questions you're asking while you're doing this yoga session?
Well, it depends on the quality that we're working on. For example, like the first quality is resilience. And so what we can do is sometimes we're reluctant to look back at challenging things. And when we look back at the things that we've already been through, it really shows us how far we've come. And so it gives us perspective on what we've done, what we've achieved, and then looking at, okay, well, let's look at one of those moments that, you felt like you charged forward and you achieved it in a way that you're super happy about. Or let's look at another moment that didn't go as planned, maybe didn't happen the way you liked it. What did you learn from those? Because there's always learning opportunities when we go back and reflect. So tapping into that quality of resilience is recognizing how far you've already come, and the fact that you're willing to be here to go even just a little bit further helps you to recognize and find that internal evidence and show it to yourself, because sometimes we have a hard time believing something until we have proof, which makes sense. But, and so, until we have proof. So the questions that we take people through are really helping them find that inner proof and be able to own that strength.
You already said 21 qualities. We heard about one, resilience. What are some other qualities you can work on?
Another quality is awareness, which is what we've been speaking to. And so we cultivate that from an awareness of how we're holding our body. So how you're holding your pelvis, your hips, because that affects how you're holding your spine. And so how are you holding yourself right now? How are you holding the alignment of your body in comparison to, weak posture, strong posture? How are you holding your emotional space in your heart? So that's awareness of that. Focus, determination, gratitude, power. So finding that strength, connection, being centered, being open, being observant. That's another really important one. Being willing to try, being willing to make mistakes, get on one foot and wobble all about and fall over and try again. That's what being willing is about, and being in integrity. So being truthful with yourself. Are you still holding yourself in that alignment? Are you gentle? Are you loving with yourself? Are you willing to, recognize that you are brilliant? So those are a bunch more.
Yes. So the last one you just mentioned, like what is it that you're talking about yourself? Like what are the words you're using for yourself? Do you feel that you are brilliant, or do you make yourself small, for example? So
Exactly.
I think this is also something that comes often, that women behave like they don't come into the brilliance, but somehow they are always holding themselves a little bit smaller than they truly are. Do you see this as well?
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I recognize that in myself. I recognize that in my clients. And it's definitely something that may be conditioned or maybe told to us as children, but it definitely slows us down. And I think all of the work that we're doing is ultimately to be able to sort of polish that brilliance, kind of, sparkle the shine, if you will, and be able to remove the lenses, the stories, the doubts, so that we can truly see it. Because I believe that we all have this within us. And that's what we're doing, is we're cultivating that internal light and that internal fire of your presence. And, ultimately recognizing that you are brilliant and being willing to step out and own that and come from that place of center and confidence and power is what I'm hoping to help people do. And that's in essence what we're doing through this practice, is empowering them, but also elevating them beyond the stories, beyond the heaviness of doubt and sadness and all of the things that can weigh us down, so that we can really lighten up, I guess, but also shine and be able to own it and not feel like you have to dim your light.
What can you see when women worked a while with you in your program? What is changing in their life?
A lot of things change. It really starts with how they hold themselves, because there is such more of an awareness of their body. So it starts, you start to see it in the way they carry themselves, and your posture is such an important factor in your overall health, and vice versa. And so when we start to see people walking taller with that energy of confidence and courage, it's so brilliant to see. And so that gets carried into how their work is expressing itself, how they're feeling in their relationships, how they feel with their partner, how they sleep, how they show up for their business, and starting to see that ripple effect of people are drawn to you when you're in that space of center, and it allows them to, bring on more opportunities, call it in, having better months in their business, have consistent months in their business, and just really feel amazing. And that's ultimately what it's about, is so that they are living and moving and feeling their best, and they have a tool set not only to nurture that relationship with their body and keep it strong and healthy, but one that is the anchor when they notice that they fly off into the stories or they get pulled back down into the doubt. And so it's like, okay, well, what can I do right now? So there's also that internal resilience of like, okay, I have tools. Let me go find them. They're here somewhere, but yeah, so it's a beautiful thing to see, for sure.
So it is not only that they have this tool while they're working with you, but also that, like, they can have that little tool pack that they can carry home and use at home, like know the exercises they can do by themselves.
Exactly. Because a lot of times people, they think, okay, well, I'm doing what I'm doing on the yoga mat because of what's happening for me in that moment. And you are, but there's such a real amazing continuity of effect if you recognize that you have those tools with you all the time, right? So you can always go to your breath and feel grounded. You can always tap into that courage. And so, I don't think it's a mistake that it's called a yoga practice and not a yoga perfect. And it's really, we take the tools with us wherever we go. And that's the real depth of the practice, is learning when to use them. It's like people say yoga begins as soon as it gets challenging, or my teacher says the pose begins as soon as you want to leave it. And so it's like recognizing that, okay, yes, we get to practice the pose, but what are we doing it for? You're not doing it for the mat. You're doing it for what's happening on the inside. And from the inside out, we feel the effect.
Who inspired you? Who are the people that you learned from that were the ones that inspired you to become who you are now?
I've had a lot of people. I mean, definitely my teachers and people that I've studied with and worked with. But I would say probably like as far as my deeper purpose and my why, it would have been my father. So he was a very hard worker, but struggled with depression his whole life. And so I started to create stories of like, well, if you work hard, you can't be with your family because you're working all the time. Or if you work hard, it causes you to just be so exhausted that you're depressed. And I recognize that, he had biochemical issues and, maybe he didn't have the coping tools that he needed. But that is really what inspires me, because I want people to be able to go out and be successful and go after their mission and still have energy and space and bandwidth for their family, for their relationships, for other aspects of their life. And so it really helped me to see that when we can take care of ourselves first, put on the mask, if you will, then we have that extra energy to go out and do what we're called to do, but also be able to be present in all other aspects of our life. And so I'm really, that was sort of a learning from an experience and observation perspective. So he didn't necessarily teach me all of that, but that's what, through my own personal work, been able to do. And it really helps me to be empathetic to people, and especially having gone through my own mental health challenges, that it's everywhere, and like, whether you have it, not to make a blanket statement, but so many people struggle with anxiety and depression. And the rates of that are significantly higher among business owners, because we tend to be that like creative, motivated, energetic sort of personality, but that can make us more prone to strong emotional swings. And so when I learned that, I was like, okay, well, it's even more important that I share these tools with people, because whether they tell me or not, they may be challenged by those things. And to be able to help to nourish somebody on every level, which is amazingly what yoga does, every level, spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, it really helps them to feel in that place of inner awareness, inner joy, inner light, and it helps them to be able to navigate the challenges, gives them the tools. So to answer, that's a long answer to your question, but that's who inspired me.
Do you see that during the last year, I would say, like we have this corona pandemic situation, these symptoms of anxiety and depression have become more?
Yes, I mean, in myself at times, for sure, because there's an uncertainty. And I know, from articles that I've read and research, that they are seeing that it is going up significantly. I mean, for a large number of factors, but yeah, definitely it's been a struggle for many people, unfortunately.
So these people could get help with using your tools that you have, as you already said, you created them for bringing people out of these kind of emotions, and also the symptoms that come with anxiety and depression, of course, to bring them up into how can I say, feeling better and to coming back to themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, it's not a substitute for any medical assistance or, other tools of therapy and all of that. But it's definitely well validated as far as the effect that yoga can have on our mental state, our hormonal balance, our sleep, our immune function, all of which are affected and affect our emotional state and our heart health. And so, heart health from the physical perspective, but also from the emotional perspective. And so absolutely, yeah, it's experiential from my part. I know I can definitely say that it helps me in that sense. From my students, absolutely. And then from the research that, from a variety of different bodies of research, there's a really powerful connection between yoga and helping us to calm and quiet the mind if we're feeling anxious, or breathe and, come back to a place of center and gratitude and hopefulness if we're not feeling that way. And so absolutely, I think it is really helpful for people.
So where can people find you online and in real life? So in being present with you?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram as I am Megan Nolan. And then I do have an awesome Facebook group of elevated and empowered entrepreneurs. So we connect a lot in there. And I do have a lot of great things that are happening in there. For example, I am doing a free 5-day workshop series that's happening June 14th to 18th. And we will be going deeper into that story of the warrior that I shared with you, and being able to give you tools that you can put to use right away so that you can fully step into and embody that powerful, resilient, courageous warrior version of yourself. Because we all, whether you want to call it a warrior or, I don't know, another word, a samurai or whatever word makes the most sense to you, that powerful, brilliant future self, big vision, soul version, a higher self version of you, that's what we're tapping into. So that's going to be happening in June. And I know we have a link to share for that. And so I would love to invite you all to that. And it is something that will be kind of change your perspective on yourself and how you use the yoga practice. And so it'll be really fun.
Wow, what a nice gift. I will put all the links in the description so that people can easily reach out to you and come in contact with you. And if they want to really practice with you in person, where are you at the moment? Are you still in Hawaii, or where are you?
I'm in Maui, Hawaii. Yes. Yeah. So in person might be a minute as we're still restricted to how much time we can spend with people outside of our bubble. But, if you ever find yourself over here on Maui, let me know.
Okay, so perhaps one day I will come over from one island to the other and see you also in person. It was so nice speaking with you, and I'm happy having you as my guest. And yeah, thank you for giving all the insights and sharing the great stories about the warrior and giving your gift for the challenge. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun to chat with you today.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, stay in. So yeah, it was so nice really speaking with you, and I will put the links in the description. I'm not sure if I have the link to the workshop that start at the 14th. So perhaps you can send this again.
I sent it to you in Facebook Messenger this morning,
okay.
But I can send it again.
Oh, okay, no. If it is there, then it is fine. Okay. I don't have it in the Word document. That's so I can see.
Right.
So okay. But then I will figure it out. Okay.
Okay, so, perfect. Yeah. So in the messenger, you'll find there's a longer link. And so that's the full link. And then I did an abbreviated shorter link, which is a bit.ly link. And that one's fine to share on social media and stuff like that. But if you use it in your emails, it's best to use the longer link because the shortened links can sometimes trigger spam.
Okay. Okay.
So there's 2 of them in there for depending on how you want to use them, but just so you know.
Okay. And I saw also that you sent me the photos, so I have everything. I will let you know when the podcast will be online on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. I will send you the information on Messenger as well, so that you have the link. And I'm happy if you share it. And also you can use snippets out of this video if you like to. So I'm opening the copyright. You only have to write down where it comes from. But I think like describing the story of the warrior, perhaps you want to use this for something else, and I'm allowing you to use it. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, good.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I will be sending over the the swipe copy and graphics and stuff by that. Stuff like that by June 1st. So I'll let you know when that's there, and then I'll keep an eye out for your email when things are ready. So thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Take care. Ciao.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.